As the sun dipped down in the sky, casting long shadows across the schoolyard, excitement burst in the air at Kamari's school. It was a special day, one eagerly anticipated by all the students. A day for parents to visit, to share in their children's joys and accomplishments. But for Amina, the day held no promise for parental presence. As she stood by the school gates, her heart heavy with longing and disappointment, she watched tearfully as her classmates laughed and played with their mothers and fathers, their faces radiant with happiness. Where were her own parents? Amina wondered, her thoughts swirling with uncertainty and sadness. Were they too busy with work to spare a moment for her? Or had they simply forgotten, lost in their hustle and bustle of their daily lives? As the minutes ticked by, Amina's tears threatened to spill over. Her loneliness paraded amidst the joyous chatter of her peers. She tried to push aside the ache in her heart, to pretend that she didn't care, but the emptiness ground at her soul, leaving her feeling small and insignificant. Perhaps, Amina reasoned, her parents' absence was justified. After all, her sister Hamisi was the favored child, the one whom they would move mountains and part seas. Her parents doted on Hamisi, showering her with love and attention, while Amina remained regenerated to the shadows, unnoticed and unloved. But deep down, Amina couldn't shake the feeling of longing that tugged at her heartstrings, the ache for love that seemed forever out of reach. She longed for the warmth of a parental embrace, for the reassurance that she mattered, that she was worthy of love and affection. And so, as the day drew to a close, and the last of the parents bid their children farewell, Amina stood alone at the school gates, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. But amidst the loneliness and despair, a glimmer of hope flickered in her heart, a hope that one day she would find the love and acceptance she so desperately craved for, whether from her parents or from somewhere else. Blinking back tears, she whispered softly to herself, "After all, we are all equal." But deep down, her words offered little solace against the ache of loneliness that gnawed at her soul. The end of the term arrived, and with it, the much-anticipated holiday break. As Amina prepared to leave for home, she mustered the courage to confront her parents about their absence on visiting day. "Mom, Dad," she began tentatively, her voice quivering with emotion. "Why didn't you come to my school on visiting day?" Her parents exchanged a guilty glance, their expressions clouded with remorse. "Oh, Amina," her mother sighed, her voice tinged with regret. "We are so sorry, darling. We got a little busy because we had to take Hamisi out of school to celebrate her good performance." Amina's heart sank at her mother's words, the sting of rejection piercing her soul once more. "But what about me?" she asked, her voice barely above the whisper. "Why didn't you think of me?" Her father reached out, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We enjoyed the day so much with your sister Hamisi," he admitted, his voice heavy with guilt. "We got carried away and forgot all about you, sweetheart. But please, know that we love you just as much as we love your sister." Tears welled in Amina's eyes as she struggled to process her parents' words. Despite their assurances, the pain of their neglect lingered, a bitter reminder of her place in their hearts. But as she gazed into their eyes, she saw something flicker, a spark of remorse and genuine regret. And in that moment, a glimmer of hope stirred within her, a hope that perhaps, just perhaps, her parents would learn to see her for a shining star that she was, worthy of love and acceptance, just like her sister. Each and every morning, Amina bustled into the kitchen, preparing breakfast for her family members. She couldn't shake the feeling of resentment that gnawed at her heart. Hamisi, her elder sister, had yet to lift a finger to help with the house chores, despite Amina's tireless efforts to keep the household running smoothly. With a sigh, Amina set down the spatula and turned to face Hamisi, who had just stunted into the kitchen with her hair tousled from sleep, and it was already at noon. "Amina, why is the lunch taking so long?" Hamisi whined, her voice triggered with annoyance. "I am going to be late for my movie series if I don't eat soon." Amina clenched with frustration as she met her sister's gaze. "Maybe if you help out once in a while, lunch will be ready on time," she retorted, her tone sharp with resentment. Hamisi rolled her eyes, closing her arms defensively. "Why should I help? You are perfectly capable of doing everything yourself," she scoffed. "Besides, it's not like Mom and Dad ever ask me to do anything." Amina's eyes narrowed at her sister's careless words, her anger simmering beneath her surface. "That's not the point, Hamisi," she snapped. "It is not fair that I'm always the one stuck, doing all the chores while you get to laze around." Hamisi's expression hardened, her lips pursued in defiance. "Life's not fair, Amina," she shot back, her voice dripping with contempt. "Get used to it." Amina's fist clenched at her sides as she struggled to contain her frustration. "But it's not right," she insisted, her voice trembling with emotion. "I am tired of being taken advantage of being treated like a servant in our own home." Hamisi's eyes softened slightly at her sister's words, a flicker of guilt flashing across her features. But either way, she did not care. She already knew that her parents loved her more than they loved Amina. Feeling emboldened by her conversation with Hamisi, Amina gathered her courage to approach her parents to address the unfair distribution of the house chores. With a determined resolve, she poured out her heart, pleading for fairness and equality within their home. But instead of listening to her concerns, her parents' faces twisted with anger and disdain. They scoffed at her audacity to question their authority, dismissing her complaints with callous indifference. "You dare to speak to us like that, Amina?" her father thundered, his voice laced with fury. "We have given you everything you have, and this is how you repay us? By challenging our decision and disrespecting us in our own home?" Amina's heart sank as she realized that her parents were not going to listen to reason. But what hurt the most was their cruel comparison of her to Hamisi, their favorite daughter. "You think you're better than your sister, don't you?" her mother sneered, her eyes cold with contempt. "Well, let me tell you something, Amina. Hamisi has a bright future ahead of her because she is smart at school and obedient, unlike you, who can't even excel in school." Those words struck Amina like a dagger in her heart, leaving her feeling wounded and betrayed by her own parents. But as her parents continued to berate her, their voices echoing with scorn and derision, something inside Amina snapped. Anger bubbled inside her, fierce and unyielding. How dare they belittle her dreams, her aspirations, and her very worth as a person? How dare they continue her to the narrow confines of their expectations, stripping her spirit and chained her to a fate she never chose? With a steady resolve, Amina made a decision to take control of her own destiny, to defy the limitations imposed upon her by society and by her own family. She would no longer be shackled by their expectations, their prejudices, and their narrow-mindedness. And so, with a fire burning in her eyes and a plan forming in her mind, Amina set out to prove to her parents and to herself that she was more than just a girl destined for a life for servitude and submission. She was a force that reckoned within her, a warrior with the strength and courage to carve out in her own path in a world that sought to hold her back. Amina packed her things and left that house, knowing that after some days she was going to work on her life and make sure that they regret on what they did to her. Thank you for watching to this point. Part 2 coming out soon. If you need a part 2, please comment down there. Part 2. Thank you for watching.